Jim Kavanaugh is the founder of the polemicist.net, who joins us from New York. Welcome. When you take a look at how the U.S. president is calling the Russian president a war criminal, just technically, isn't that something that should be left up to a court of some kind, a judicial process where research is done, facts are proven, and then for it to be presented for this accusation to hold true?
Of course, and it is something more than irony that an American president would do that. There's no American president since World War II is in any position to call anybody else a war criminal, and that includes Joe Biden, who supported every invasion that the United States did. But you're right about the general principle, which is very important. We now live in a situation. There was a very imperfect architecture of international law based on the United Nations and based on the International Criminal Court, etc., that people paid something more than lip service to for some years. But really, that's been destroyed over the last decades by the actions of the United States and its allies, especially Israel, who have paid absolutely no attention to that. So the whole structure of international law now is in tatters, and it's in tatters because of the actions of the United States. And since 1991, certainly, when in the war against Yugoslavia, which was black letter against international law, and the United States essentially announced under Bill Clinton that from now on NATO was going to determine which countries could be invaded and which countries wouldn't be. And that no longer was the United Nations structure of international law the governing principle, but now it was the international community, which meant the United States and its allies, and the rules-based international order, which meant we make the rules and you follow our orders. So this has been the case for 20 years at least. And it's the United States that's destroyed the system of international law. And the fact is, no country now is going to be the only one that obeys a system that's been destroyed. It's kind of a ghost of international law that we have. And until and unless we have, as I said in my article, we can bring this question to the table, but there's no table. We have to rebuild that table of international law. And if you want to bring people to that table, you got to start in order. You can bring Vladimir Putin after you bring George Bush and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, in order, as the question of, give in a system which is fair and which all nations have a say in constructing and enforcing that system, then let's build it. But we don't have it now.
Well, the problem that comes about here is the fact that you're having a U.S. president make these types of claims. Not these types of claims, leveling this accusation against the Russian president. And I have to say this because for the sake of conversation or debating this topic or talking about it, I don't want to come across as defending any casualties that are happening there in Ukraine, because when you present the facts of what the U.S. has done, whether it's the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and of course the one that's really horrific, and that's the war in Yemen. Not only has the U.S. committed war crimes, but it has also supported regimes that are committing crimes of that nature. So it doesn't have solid footing. And when you put the facts together, then you have a solid foundation to go against the U.S. Again, not to say that civilian casualties in Ukraine are something that we're trying to disregard here. So why would the U.S. think that this should stick?
It doesn't stick anywhere in the world, but in the American media. People know over 300,000 civilian casualties in Yemen, as you say, and the American military is part of that. How many? 1 million casualties, hundreds of thousands, at least in Iraq, 20 years of civilian casualties in Afghanistan. These are unilateral actions of the United States that had no justification in quote unquote international law. Now, in any war, every side is going to accidentally or deliberately or in some way or another, innocent civilians are going to get killed. And it's always going to be difficult to judge, whether that's something that rises to the issue of an international war crime. But you need, as I say, a mechanism that is fair and objective and that the entire world recognizes is going to adjudicate that question fairly. And that's just not the case. We don't have it. We haven't had it for decades, the United States, Israel, United States and its partners do what they want. While the United States is complaining about this, it is occupying 1/3 of Syria with no justification except we want the oil, and it's arming. Israel is bombing Damascus daily with no justification. So this is something that people outside the United States know the hypocrisy of this, and Joe Biden is in no position to be putting himself, pretending that he has the authority or the moral authority, any kind of authority, to decide who's a war criminal and who's not, unless he starts with himself.
Thank you for that. Jim Kavanaugh, founder of the polemicist.net. Thank you so much.